So I had an emergency in Portland that I had to come home to deal with. It's been a few days, and while I was here I thought I would take advantage of the time and do a few gear updates and give you guys a review of what's going on. Right behind me is the Z-Packs duplex tent freestanding upgrade. I'll talk about that for a few minutes later. And here's the other stuff I'm going to talk about. All right, so I hope you enjoy this, and I'm going to be back on the PCT in a couple days. Looking forward to that. Smart water bottles. Almost everybody uses these. Of course, they're tall, so you can get two of them in your side pocket in your backpack. I got a couple of the sport tops because I thought that it would prevent me from losing the caps and a little easier to drink out of. What I found is that these parts of the caps break off, and then you have a dribbly bottle. No, sport tops are gone. I don't use them. The other thing about water is kind of your entire water system. I use the Sawyer Squeeze like so many other people do. Frequently, some people will use these just simply carry extra bottles for, you know, that extra 4, 5, 6 liters you may need. Though, while they're very, you know, they're very durable, they still take up a lot of space. So people will use things like these Sawyer Squeeze bladders. After 250 miles, one of them has sprung a tiny little leak. I carry them like this in my backpack, of course, and the leaks are up in here, so it really isn't a problem. They leak, or one of them leaks. I don't like that. So I will be trading these out. Now, in Mount Laguna, they have the Outfitter, which is just a totally interesting place. Maybe I'll just flash a little video of it up on the screen right now. Here's the Outfitters. They suggested throwing these out, and by the way, every hiker box you see along the way will have a half a dozen of these squeeze bladders in them. They just don't work for people, and they get tossed. So at Mount Laguna, they suggested using the platypus bladder in place of this, stating that they would match. Well, the truth is they don't. There's a lot of information on the web about people trying to use the platypus with the Sawyer system. The threads just don't match. I understand that some people go and they can get an O-ring to go in here and get a solid enough fit on the platypus that they're usable. Let me tell you what my problem with that is, and I think it's a horrific problem. This is now, pretend this is my platypus, okay? Because you don't get a really tight seal on it, you do get some leakage out. Contaminated water, clean water, right? If you're filling up your bottle and you get a little leakage, you'll see it drip down and get on the nipple, or it could potentially get on the nipple, and you've just contaminated your clean water. Some people talk about this and say they'll hold it off to the side and squeeze it, and I think that the platypus idea is a complete fail. If you have any potential contamination of your clean water, why are you filtering? So that's my opinion. I'm going to get one of the Evernew bladders, which apparently have the correct threading, so there's no leakage problems. In the meantime, I carry these because carrying them in vertical manner like this, you don't actually get any leakage when you're carrying them. So one other thing about carrying bladders for extra water, remember you've probably, by the way, I love the circuit, it's working out really well for me. You're probably carrying 2-liter bottles in your side pocket, something like this. And maybe you're carrying 3, maybe 4 liters this way. I also use on the circuit, I use the shoulder pad a water bottle adapter. Then what you're probably going to do is something like take your extra bladders holding your surplus water and put them here in the back of your pack. Now remember that these things full, it's 2.2 pounds a liter. So one of these full is going to weigh 4.5 pounds, give or take a few ounces. You get 2 of these on the back of your pack, and now you're carrying 9 pounds of water, totally off balance. It's way in the back rather than where the weight should be, and you're going to feel, or at least I feel, that extra weight tugging, and that's the only problem I have with my back. It's not a big problem, but I will get a little soreness in my back just because of the weight misbalance if I'm carrying these. So that's just something to think about. I typically keep my bottles here. If I really had to carry 5 liters, I can do 2, and then 1 on my shoulder strap. So that's what I have to say about that. Really work on a system so you're not contaminating your good water with your contaminated water. I think that's what I have to say. Oh yeah, and don't use those sport tops. But I hate the fact that I lose these. I do lose them. So actually I carry a couple extra tops with me. I was really concerned about the desert. I didn't know what to expect. Pretty okay with things now, and this sun umbrella, this is huge. I can't. It's true that when you use this, you feel a 10-degree reduction in heat. It's pretty incredible, and it becomes easy to use. It's a little awkward to carry it and use trekking poles and whatnot, but you kind of work through some of that yourself. But anyway, umbrella. If I'm going to do the desert, I want a umbrella. This thing works splendidly. I carry a sewing needle inside of my, I'm sorry, I've got glasses that I have to carry with me. That was just sand from the umbrella. I have to carry a nice set of prescription glasses, and then I carry my cheap readers and sunglasses. But I do tape a sewing needle right in here, and this has saved my butt, literally. The sewing needle and some dental floss works pretty well for some emergency patching, which I had to do on my shorts. So that works well for me. Up next is cooking. This is what I've been using. The cup, actually. I just found I don't drink coffee or eat oatmeal on the trail, and there's really nothing else I would use this cup for, apart from trying to make a meal in it, and of course it's too small. So I shipped this home quite some time ago. So my current system on the trail is this. There's a few things I like about this. Yeah, I made a little koozie for it. I don't know. I've got it. I made it. The nice thing about this being the what is this? This is a GSI Soloist. It's got the non-stick bottom. It's not titanium, but it's got the non-stick bottom in it, so you can use. Food won't burn on the bottom of it like it will on titanium pots. The food burns so easily on these. They don't claim this to be non-stick, so it's okay. Then this fits a canister of fuel, of course. Fits a stove, a Bic lighter, and a few other things. And the nice thing about this is by the time you get everything loaded in here, you can flip this thing over and you now have a self-contained cook set that you don't have to have a sack for. Really like that. Couple things about it. First, I'm gonna jump around here for just a second. I have an MSR pocket rocket, and that's what I started with. And I've been using my Snow Peak titanium set. The problem with the pocket rocket and the titanium, the Snow Peak system, as you know, the pocket rocket's got the 3 prongs that stick up, and they just have a small little holder on each one. This is, anyway, this is the smaller width, and what would happen is that it would balance very precariously in here. It'd just kind of be a pain in the butt to have to always make sure that that was balanced, and if you tried to stir something in it or move it a little bit, it was just kind of unstable. So that was one of the reasons why I went with the whole GSI system, is that it overhung the thingamajiggers well enough that it was nice and stable. Certainly giving up a lot of weight to take this as opposed to the titanium. When I was in Mount Laguna, I ended up buying the kinetic titanium stove. This, as you can see, the arms on it unfold like this. It gives you a very large stove top, and now the titanium stove balances on it very well. So one of the reasons why I even considered moving off the titanium has been addressed and solved with the kinetic. The other thing about the kinetic is it is almost 1.5 ounces lighter than the pocket rocket. It seems to work extremely well. I haven't had any problems with it. It gets great reviews. So save 1.5 ounces, you get a better stove top. And I've been really happy with this. So I'm going to stick with this. There's no reason to go to the pocket rocket when I have this. And this also allows me to go back to the titanium pot if I wish to. I would send the titanium cup home. I wouldn't use it either. The difference now between these two is that this is about 4 ounces lighter. The titanium is about 4 ounces lighter than the GSI, and can't really cook inside of it. Yeah, freezer bag cooking. You boil the water and you pour it in a 1 quart freezer bag. I just haven't done that. It's just so much easier to pour something in here. I'm not really making, this is really all I eat, apart from maybe a cold dinner with a wrap or something. Watch this. This is all I eat. I cook up one of these Knorrs by the campfire and eat it, and that's it. I don't cook anything else besides that, really. And that works really well in here. I can do it all in here. Doesn't stick. Eat out of it. Cleans up extremely easily when I'm ready to pack everything up. You know? Yep. I'm ready to pack everything up. Boom, boom, boom. Goes in the backpack. Done. So that's a really great thing about this. The titanium Snow Peak. Oh, that's another thing. I really like the handles on this thing. I like being able to pick it up and deal with that without burning your fingers like can happen with this. This is just kind of a little more of a pain in the ass to deal with. No big deal, but when you take something out for 150 nights, little things like this, you know, it's probably more of an irritation than anything, but anyway. So this as well will hold a canister, the stove, everything you might need in it. Because it doesn't have that flip top handle, you're kind of stuck putting it in some sort of a stuff sack, which, yeah, just one more thing to deal with. Blah, blah, blah. So what I found so far is that I do cook most of the time. I make a Knorr side for dinner, and again, that's it. But I tell you, I don't really need this. I think I'd be very happy with some trail mix or some a wrap or something like that cold. And when I go back to the PCT in 2 days, I'm not going to take a stove with me. I am going to go stoveless for the rest of the desert. I expect I will have a stove shipped to me for the Sierra, but I'm going to go stoveless. I think that that's not that difficult to do, and it's going to save me, what, £1.25 overall. So that's what I'm doing about cooking. Sleeping, I carry a piece of Tyvek with me. This is great to pull out in the middle of the day to lay down on if you want to take a nap, or if you don't want to get dirty. But dirty is just kind of part of the deal, isn't it? Cowboy camping, with sleeping without the tent. I hadn't done this at all prior to the PCT, and I tell you, I love it. There's nothing like waking up in the middle of the night and you look up and there's the Milky Way and a sky full of stars like you just can't see anyplace else. I love it, and I prefer that over a tent, hands down. And it also saves you the time of pitching the tent and pulling it down, which is a significant time saver in some cases. So that's what I use for my ground sheet. I started off, or I'm still using, the stuff sack for my clothes that has the fleece lining on it, right? Put all your clothes in there, use it as your dry sack, open it up, pull all your clothes out, turn it inside out, take your puffy or whatever, stuff it in there, and use that as your pillow. You see this Cuban fiber? You put that on a Neo-Air Thermarest, and it's like a snot. You give this thing an opportunity to pop out from underneath your head, and boom, it's gonna go. It's so slick that it's really annoying. Even more so than that, well, there's two additional things. One, if you take your clothes out of here, you got to do something with them. You got to put them someplace. If I put them all back in the stuff sack like this, the pillow is just too large, very uncomfortable, even given the fact that that you can't keep it under your head. It's just one more thing that you have to kind of fart around with all the time, and I don't like doing that. So my pillow is my puffy. Wad this thing up, and that's it. I find this to be this totally works for me. That's all I can say. It's very comfortable, and I love it. There may come a time when I need to wear my puffy because it's so cold and the sleeping bag's not enough. So I'll wear my puffy and deal with having no pillow. That's the way I'll go. So that's the ground cover, sleeping, stuff sack, fleece sided, fleece side on your dry sack, puffy for a pillow. That's what I'm doing. I started with some of those titanium V-shaped tent stakes. Uber lightweight. Z-Pack sells them, but of course they don't make them. There's a number of places that sell them. So, and Z-Pack states that you have to be pretty careful with them. I guess I'm not very careful with tent stakes. I had destroyed, I think I took 6 with me, destroyed 3 of them, maybe 4 of them by Warner Springs. So I tossed them and put the other 2 in the hiker box. They just weren't strong enough in the hard packed soil that is often found, and no matter, they just required too much care to use, and I tossed them. Went back to groundhogs. They're a little heavier, but groundhogs work. Still using a couple of the other stakes I got from Z-Packs. These work well as well, but they just don't. They don't grab and work quite like the groundhogs, but I'm using 2 of those. So that's what I've done with stakes. When I knew I was going to come back to Portland, I put in an order to Z-Packs for their Flex Bar add-on for the duplex tent. So I am going to go pitch the tent in the backyard It's the easiest way to see this, and then talk about it, why I bought this kit, and whether I'm going to use it or not. See you in a minute. All right, there it is. That's a pretty quick throw it up job. Maybe it doesn't look quite as elegant as a Big Agnes Cooper Spur or something like that as a freestanding, but totally functional. If you want to pull the doors out and close them, you can use a trekking pole here and pull this out just like you would with any other freestanding tent. It goes up really fast, and that's about it. Let me tell you why. I found quite a few places, at least in the desert so far, that the ground is either, well, first of all, if you stake it out fully, it's a big footprint, really big footprint. And without the freestanding option, you know, you've got to set up all 8 stakes. I found a lot of tent sites where this was, staking it out was just took up too much space. So having a freestanding option like this, you can see that you can sleep in it as it is if you don't want to close the doors. And unless it's going to be raining or really windy, I haven't closed the doors on this thing yet. The few times the times I've used it in the desert. So it'll fit where you have the footprint limitations. The other thing that this allows you to do is set it up in locations where the ground is just not conducive to stakes. And I found that most of the places I've pitched in the desert have been, most of them have been a little challenging with getting the stakes in, either completely sandy or really hard packed. Sometimes it's easy to find rocks, sometimes it's not. Anyway, it does add some weight. The poles are 10 ounces. I guess you can argue that you can leave a few tent stakes at home, and that will offset that a little bit. Of course, I'm concerned about adding 10 ounces to my pack, but if I'm going to be using this tent in a lot of different environments, how much is it worth to me to have the ease of setting it up and tearing it down, as well as the footprint size? I can set it up in a lot more places than I can otherwise. So I'm not certain I'm going to take the poles with me to the desert yet, especially because I like cowboy camping so much. But I've got this as an option, and I think if needed, this would work pretty well. Wrap up with just a few more things. In the desert, don't bother. It's not big enough. Go with a couple ounces or more. The small travel size just didn't work for me. Hand sanitizer, you have to have that. Blistex, probably. This is what I actually carry in my pack side pocket. It's where I keep things. I have to stay organized, or I lose things. It's terrible. I don't have them out here, but I have my toothbrush and my toothpaste, and I keep the 5 of those things in my backpack hip pocket. That's where I like them. They're always there. Okay, dehydration, electrolytes. I haven't been using electrolyte supplements, but I'm going to start, and I will be carrying these in my side pocket as well, just for ease of access. These are horse pills, huge, but I will put a handful of them in a small baggie and keep them up there. Again, just because it makes it easy to use, I will use them. If I bury these in my pack, I won't. So let's go over a couple other things. Foot glide, any type of glide for chafing or whatever. These things can get, even in the small size, these can get a little heavy to carry. By the way, I'm not using this particular one. I found it in a hiker box. You can find just about anything you want in a hiker box. This is not cheap, and I found the whole thing. Anyway, I already have that here. And what I do with these things is you can just unscrew the whole thing, right? And take it out of there. There's no point in carrying the entire can, whatever you call this thing. Instead, I put them in a little pill box or a little pill bag and just use them like this. The nice thing, actually, one of the nice things about pulling them out like this, oh, it broke in half. No problem at all. As a matter of fact, to save a little weight, you might want to cut them in half. But in this form, they're really easy to slide between the toes, which is one of the places you'd want to use this foot glide. Yeah, it can get a little messy, but that's why I carry baby wipes. So this is how I carry my foot glide and my body glide. I've only used the body glide once or twice. I got into a situation where things got a little crufty once. Cleaned up well. I always try to clean up well with the baby wipes, and put some body glide on, and it was gone the next day. So I do carry this. Haven't really used it at all. The foot glide, I use no blisters at all. Blisters typically aren't a problem for me, but I've had no blisters, and I don't use this every day like I should, but I use it occasionally, and the stuff works really well. This is the foot glide. All right, so that's how I carry that stuff. Now, a lot of people would just by default put these things in a plastic baggie. I also use some Gold Bond, and that's really it. I have a blister kit with me, a couple different things for blisters, but I've never used it. I just, like I said, I don't have problems. Carry a little rock tape. This is for my Achilles to tape it up. Little dental floss, like I showed you earlier. This is not only good for your teeth, but for emergency sewing. Speaking of dental floss, I really prefer dental picks. I'm a little cautious, or I'm very careful about the end on this. I don't want to poke something like my air mattress. But in addition to these things that I carry in my side pocket, I also throw a couple of these in. You may notice that I'm carrying these things in a little plastic container. This is again for my neurotic needs. I do take a number of medications, and I keep them in actually I take a lot more than that, but I keep them in here. And I think the small extra weight and size penalty I take for carrying this, for me, well worth it, and I am happy to do it. Keeps my things easy for me to reach and to use, and to me, ease of access and ease of use means that I'll actually take stuff. If I don't give myself easy access to my meds, I'll just blow it off and won't take them. I think I mentioned I take my toothbrush and my toothpaste as well in my side pocket. And finally, the magic baby wipes. They're not just for babies. I clean my feet with them every night. Yeah, I could use a bandana and some water, but I just take the baby wipes. This is not actually how many I take. This is just a surplus of them I have right here. So I usually clean my feet off with these, and then of course they're very useful for your nightly cleaning of your personal areas, just to keep things good. Take care of yourself out there. So I think that covers a lot of stuff. I've done a few other things with, for example, my pack dry sack, as opposed to using a separate dry sack for my sleeping bag. A few other things like that. But so thanks for hanging out. If you got any questions, let me know. Put them down in the comments. See you back on the PCT.